as I recall it, the country that I lived in, well, okay, let me think of one. Uh, there were three protest marches on Washington, groups that formed that felt that they wanted a country that was exact or much like our uh, the edict of our country when it was formed.
The, the Declaration of Independence?
Thank you. I could not for the
Okay.
moment. The Declaration of Independence. And this was not happening in this country, the USA. And I felt that I needed, and others, of course, felt, thousands of others felt that this is inequality is not what our Constitution was written for. And again, Jenny, or some of the other people here can quote the important parts of our Constitution, which I do remember, but I'm not going to, I'll let the others do that. I remember smidgens of it, not totally. And so I later on, when I grew up, I worked with, I'm a clinical social worker and psychotherapist, and I worked with groups of children, families who were dispossessed, children of color who did not have, and others too, who had not the rights that white-skinned Americans had. And I saw this inequality and felt that I did not want to live in a country that was unequal to any people just because of their race or religion. And you can fill in the rest. Now to get to the March on Washington. There were three marches by ordinary people who felt strongly that this should be a country just as our Constitution had spoken about, equal rights for everyone, no matter what their race or religion. And and groups of people who felt the same way, and the leader, Dr. Martin Luther King, who was not a medical doctor. He had a PhD degree, which he was the leader of these marches, a very important person. I heard Dr. Martin Luther King speak. I have a dream. I have a dream. And again, others of you, and I think papers have been handed out of the final speech that Dr. Martin Luther King spoke on one of the marches to Washington. I will briefly tell you there were three marches organized to go to Washington, D.C., where our capital is, to make this plain that we wanted such a country. The first two marches, and there were groups of people, both black and white, and different colors. Mostly the first two, I believe, I cannot remember, were the darker skinned black people who marched. And they made the attempt, and each time they marched, the two planned marches, which were highly organized by Dr. King and his followers, they made an attempt, and they did not get to Washington, D.C., Washington, our capital. They did not get to our capital because there were thugs, white-skinned thugs, who vowed that these people, in quote, would never succeed. They would never succeed. And there were heads bashed in, and when I say heads bashed in, with clubs, with weapons, and heads hit, and people laid down on the ground, fell to the ground. They fell to the ground. They were incapacitated. I believe, and you'd have to check history, that some died. I'm almost certain many, as a matter of fact, died. But again, it's a long time ago, and history, sometimes in one's memory, gets somewhat distorted and not as clear. But they did not make it. Dr. King realized that too many, during those two first marches, that too many people were being killed. Too many good, innocent, decent people who had a cause, and that there were others who were thugs, were out to never allow any people to get to Washington to speak about the cause. And thus, Dr. King stopped those marches, for which he got some criticism, very strong criticism, because the other followers, some followers felt that the cause was so great that it did not matter that the cause meant that some fatalities, or perhaps many, would occur, but they had to get to Washington. However, Dr. King stopped the marches, and then I'm going to very briefly talk about the Third March.